Hello, everybody, and welcome today to our webinar on perspectives on the use of artificial intelligence and impact assessment. I am Keisha Blaser. I am going to be hosting today's webinar with the International Association for Impact Assessment, but you'll mostly be hearing from our three speakers, who I will introduce in just a moment. But there are over 1,000 of you registered from over 100 different countries, so thank you all for joining. We are so excited to have you here with us today. This webinar, like I said, is being hosted by the International Association for Impact Assessment, or IAIA. IAIA is the leading global network on best practice for using impact assessment for making better and more informed decisions. I will be facilitating the webinar, like I said, but you'll mainly be hearing from our presenters, who you'll hear from in a moment. If you hear something today in our webinar that you'd like to share with your network, please do so on social media, and you can use our handle there to tag us and that hashtag IAIA webinar as well. Before we get started, I'd like to invite you all to check out our website at IAIA.org to see all the different resources we have to offer there. So first, there are webinars on demand. So you see only a few different examples there, like human rights due diligence, which was in Spanish, health impact assessment for spatial planning, and then more from Josh's Digital IA series. But we have a variety of webinars on different topics like resettlement, biodiversity, and more. So please do go to our website and check out those. Additionally, we also have some upcoming events that I'd like to highlight, such as our symposium in Guatemala, which is happening on the 6th and 7th of November. The theme for this year's symposium is Infrastructure and the Environment in Latin America, and registration is open until mid-October. So if you are not yet registered for that symposium, I'd encourage you to go to IAIA.org and check out more information there. And next up, you'll be hearing about this in today's webinar, but we also have our IAIA 25 annual conference, which this year is going to be held in Bologna, Italy. Registration is not yet open for that conference, so I just want to mention that, but you can still go to our website and learn more about that to be ready to register right when it opens. In addition to webinars, we also have a variety of online training options, such as our online training courses, which are live courses with an expert instructor happening via Zoom. There's a variety of courses scheduled for October and November and even December already, so I'd encourage you to go check out those and see if any are a good fit for you. And then we also have 2 different courses in our professional development program. So first, we have a Foundations of EIA course, and that one is kind of just like it says, a foundational course of impact assessment. And the next round is starting in September and will go through December. And then we also have a new course in social impact assessment in our PDP as well. And right now, registration, I believe we might have 1 or 2 seats available in the September course, but that course has sold out very quickly, so I'd encourage you to go check out that very soon if you have any interest in the SIA course. And then finally, there are a variety of downloadable publications as well, such as our best practice principles, IA fast tips, and more. So again, like I said, just go to our website, www.iaia.org, to check out all of those and much more. So a few pieces of housekeeping before we get started. Yes, this webinar will be recorded, and if you are registered for the webinar, it will be sent to you within a day or 2 of the live broadcast, along with the slides that will be used in today's webinar. Next up, if you have any questions, I'd encourage you to use the Questions tab on the GoToWebinar dashboard. You can ask a question at any point during the webinar, but we will have a dedicated time at the end for Q&A, and we'll have about 20 to 25 minutes for that, so there should be plenty of time to get some of your questions answered. So at any point during the webinar, if you have a question, go ahead and put it in the chat box, and we will get to it at the end. And then finally, slides will also be available when you get the email with the recording in a day or 2. But right now you can also access the slides under the Handouts tab on the GoToWebinar panel as well. So right now you can access them there, and then they will be emailed to you directly at the end of the webinar. All right, at this point, I would like to introduce the speakers for today's webinar. So first up, we have Josh Fothergill. Josh is moderating the webinar for us today. Josh is the lead author of the State of Digital IA Practice, which was launched in late 2021, and he has regularly led in-depth reviews into IA systems. Josh founded Fothergill Training and Consulting to provide independent IA expertise and capacity building services. He previously spent a decade at the Institute of Environmental Management and Assessment, IAIA, co-authoring much of the UK's IA guidance over that period and creating the award-winning EIA Quality Mark scheme. Next, Giuseppe Magro is Adjunct Professor of Artificial Intelligence and Machine Learning for Business in the University of Bologna. He is a nuclear engineer with more than 20 years of international experience in digital permitting systems in both ESIA and SEA for governments and local institutions. He's also the chair of IAIA 25 in Bologna. And then next up, Valentina Cavana is an Italian lawyer with more than 10 years of experience in environmental law. She is also a research fellow at Turin University and is going to discuss her PhD thesis on HIA at Turin University. She's part of the technical program committee of IAIA 25 and co-chair of the health section of IAIA. And then finally, apologies, we were supposed to be also hearing from Hak-Ju Sung with the World Bank, who's an environmental specialist and the lead of tech for ESF initiative at the World Bank. But Josh is going to share a little bit more about why Hak-Ju cannot be with us today. So unfortunately, our webinar will be a bit shorter than planned as well. We might run about 20 to 25 minutes shorter than planned with Hak-Ju no longer joining us. So with that, again, those are your amazing presenters you'll be hearing from shortly. So with that, Josh, over to you.
Thank you very much, Keisha. Thank you for that lovely introduction, and welcome everyone wherever you are around the world. So morning time over on the east coast of the US and down in South America, mid-afternoon across Africa and Europe, and of course early evening in the Middle East, and possibly even some of you from further afield where it's even later in the evening. So welcome. The webinar today is going to be Perspectives on Artificial Intelligence, AI, Artificial Intelligence in Impact Assessment, and exploring the IAIA 25 conference theme through the experiences of two of its leaders. As Keisha mentioned, we were planning to also then have a practical application alongside from Hak-Ju Song from the World Bank, looking at AI and its application in the World Bank. And certainly we're hoping to bring you that at some point in the future. However, Hak-Ju is on paternity leave now. It was always a small possibility, but it's come a few weeks earlier than expected, but it's all good news, baby doing well and everything. So that's all wonderful from that side, but does mean that today, unfortunately, we can't give you that perspective, but we'll certainly try and bring that at a later date. What I did want to do, just as we start the session and think about digital impact assessment and artificial intelligence within impact assessment, is to look at some of that wider context in relation to it. So I'm Josh Fothergill. I led a IAIA grant-funded research study back in 2001 into the state of digital impact assessment around the globe. And as part of that report process, there was a lot of interesting examples coming forward, and the report could only go so far about kind of showing those examples and discussing them. So we started the webinar series to really delve into that a little bit more, and we've continued that over the last few years, and certainly there is no reduction in interest or progress around digital impact assessment and its context. So what do we mean by digital impact assessment? Well, I think that's probably a useful place to start with our conversation. So before the report I did in 2001, there wasn't really any definition. There still isn't really any definition, certainly in many of the impact assessment laws or the financial institution standards around the world that also use environmental and social impact assessment. There's certainly many different views across practitioners as to what digital impact assessment means and what the application of artificial intelligence might mean, as we'll hear about later today. So, as I say, in 2021, there was this research project funded by an IAIA grant, and as part of that, we came up with a pretty broad church definition. So me and my co-author, Joe Murphy, and it's the use of advances in digital technologies and their applications in the pursuit of enabling more effective impact assessment practice. So it isn't simply about, digital for digital's sake. It's about how digital technologies are brought into impact assessment in order to make it more effective. However, there's still plenty of room for discussion and debate about what do we mean by more effective for who, etc. And we may have a chance to explore some of that in the discussion after today's presenters. So moving on from that, where can you find out more about digital impact assessment more generally? Well, if you go to either the IAIA's website and its resources section, or you follow the link at the top of that slide there, then you'll be able to access the report that runs through about 60 or 70 pages and looks at a number of different examples. Now, of course, that was launched at the end of 2021, so there have been various advances since then. And if you follow that link again at the top, then you'll be able to get to the previous webinar series that, as mentioned by Keisha, you can also access through the IAIA's past webinars section as well. And you can see we've explored a number of different areas there: digital impact assessment workplaces, workspaces. So how do we digitize and bring people into the process of the impact assessments? What Western Australia was doing around big data and their systems around that. We've had a number that explore artificial intelligence, and we've looked at places and approaches from around the world. As I mentioned, hopefully we'll manage to schedule something back with the World Bank and their AI process at some point. And also we're planning to have an example from Hong Kong about experiences of digitizing impact assessment approaches, hopefully before the end of this year. So lots of great examples, lots of previous things, but you've come to hear about what's going on today. Well, digital impact assessment isn't just something that is limited to Europe or to America or to kind of specific parts of the world. It's things that are advancing all over the world. And in fact, earlier on in the series in February this year, January, February this year, me and my partner I'd been working with launched a research report into the potential for digital impact assessment and the transition towards more digital systems in Nigeria. And you can see lots of other examples on the slide there. Worth mentioning for those of you particularly interested in artificial intelligence in the international finance section, the International Finance Corporation, the IFC, which is the private lending side of the World Bank, they have an artificial intelligence called Molina, and that's had some updates recently. So if you search online for IFC Molina, M-A-L-E-N-A, then you should be able to find the updates around that. And there's some ability to kind of use that system in a kind of public sense to potentially analyze your environmental statements, for example, or EIA reports for sentiment analysis, etc. In terms of digital impact assessment, also, the report tried to, I suppose, try and recognize, yes, it's a broad church, but we need to be able to structure our thinking around digital impact assessment. So as of 2021, we're trying to kind of bring digital impact assessment into these two general areas: approaches and technologies that are coming from outside, digital advances from outside the world of impact assessment, that can then be used and brought up within the impact assessment process. So online digital databases, what we're doing right now, online learning and capacity building that perhaps wouldn't have been a focus 4 or 5 years ago necessarily, as well as the use of artificial intelligence, which we'll focus on shortly when we move on to our speakers. But there's also a side of within the actual impact assessment profession itself of bringing and developing dedicated digital tools to that. And one of the sessions we had earlier in the series about dreams is a Danish research project that has really kind of looked and brought a lot of capacity together to digitize the Danish EIA system within the European Union. Just a couple of other areas to mention in terms of digital impact assessment, whether it's artificial intelligence, whether it's the use of drones, whether it's the increasing use of databases and big data. There are key areas and new areas that need managing. There's more around data, of course, around its integration, but also trust and in terms of iteration. And when we produce an environmental statement, if it's an online version, then how do we ensure that this is the version that was submitted at the point of application as opposed to something that's been updated since? There are things around quality and cost. Does it make sense to bring in all these digital techniques? Do they generate savings or not? How are they generating savings? What are the risks to the loss of skilled humans within the process? And we had some of that discussion in the session back in July when we talked about keeping the humans in the loop around artificial intelligence. There's, of course, engagement and digital technologies can bring huge amounts of additional engagement routes, but there's also the risk of digital divide and certain parts of society being kind of left aside by digital-only approaches. So other areas that we need to think about. And then, of course, factors around safety, privacy, and security. Just as we think in the real world, they apply in the digital world, but in just slightly different ways. So as impact assessment becomes more digital, there's key areas that we need to be aware of, where we need to change and evolve our skills and capabilities, and also those of the team that we're working with in the EIA process. The report kind of concluded with a number of different areas that could, be explored further. And one of those you can see there is, what role will artificial intelligence play in the future delivery of the impact assessment process? And that nicely links us on to both the theme for next year's IAIA 25 conference, impact assessment in the age of artificial intelligence, and also, of course, our two speakers for today, who are going to give perspectives on artificial intelligence and impact assessments. We've had some introductions already, but just to just briefly repeat those: Giuseppe Magro, who is Adjunct Professor of Artificial Intelligence and Machine Learning for Business at the University of Bologna. He's also the president of the IAIA. He chaired the 2015 IAIA conference about impact assessment in the digital era, and now 10 years on, he's coming back to chair next year's conference, which will also be hosted in Italy, on impact assessment in the age of artificial intelligence. We will move on to Valentina Cavana, but as Giuseppe has already joined us on screen, I'll happily move over to you, Giuseppe, and hopefully we can share your slides.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Josh, for your very interesting introduction, very complete. Welcome, everyone. You participate from all very important part of the world, so many people. So we are so excited to present in these few minutes. Our objective, me and Valentina, is both to invite you in Bologna, that we consider one of the most important IAIA conferences, not why we are organizing it, but because it's a very crucial point in the human history. We are in front of the global conference of impact assessment, and will come assessor coming from all the part of the world. And we are talking about the technology that probably will have the most important impact ever, probably in time. So this is a very crucial point, very important time, and I think it's very important for every one of us to participate to this revolution. And so thank you for your participation in your webinar. Three main topics today. What is artificial intelligence? A very global and draft way. We can't do a course of impact assessment and artificial intelligence in few slides, in few minutes. But just to have an idea of the strong impact of this technology on everything, but in particular on impact assessment. And we will see that impact assessment is so strictly connected with artificial intelligence, because the paradigm of learning by data and deciding using the data is the fundamental of IAIA, is fundamental of our discipline, and machine learning do exactly this. So that's the reason why it's not a technology like the other. Artificial intelligence has got a predominant role and function in impact assessment and in governance. My work is to help governments and institutions to use the data to decide into the permitting systems over the world, because it's one of the most important key factor, as you can imagine, because when you authorize something, you create the new situation, and that the impact starts to be real. And the third level is the call to action through IAIA 25. So please, the next slide. Okay, Bologna is a wonderful city, and so we invite very friendly way to invite you in Bologna. Bologna is a very medieval city, is an historical one. We have the oldest university in the world, so there is a strong attention to impact assessment, to artificial intelligence. We have an important European center talking exactly and analyzing the climate change and the big amount of use of data exactly for taking decision on this crucial topic. Next one, please. Okay, in Bologna, we will have a multidisciplinary discussion. The idea is to discuss exactly from the principle of the use of artificial intelligence into the impact assessment and going down to the application, as Josh stressed. And we would like to face both the general principle and the potential application, the risks and the opportunity of this disruptive technology applied to the key sector now, which are on the table. For example, the world now is talking about environmental, social, and governance. As you know, the new European taxonomy, the financial sector is in front of a revolution, and artificial intelligence can play a very effective role and function to help this huge system, because as you know, when and where you decide to use the money, you start the impact. So in the very beginning of the process, there is where we invest. And so it's a critical point, and it will be in specific session of this conference. Next slide, please. I want to stress one basic concept. We talk about artificial intelligence. As you can see, artificial intelligence is not so new. It started in 1956. So you can imagine that something happened. And why? For many, many years, no one was talking about artificial intelligence. I remember my first conferences of artificial intelligence 25 years ago. There were very, very few people and few researchers, a very vertical, a very niche. And now what happened? It happens this. Artificial intelligence is, to be very roughly speaking, it's not a technical session, but when we use the computer to simulate what? Our behavior, our harms, our behavior. What's machine learning? Machine learning is when we use a computer not to simulate our behavior, but to simulate the behavior of our mind. That's the killer app. That's the revolution. That's the way why big data, big amount of data, very low cost of tools using algorithms, but very old algorithms, not so new algorithms, and machine learning is the killer app, is the new revolution. That's the reason why everyone in the world is talking about machine learning and artificial intelligence, because we changed an approach, and the very big changing, and this is very interesting to know, is that for many, many years, we tried to teach to the machine how to behave, how to. Then we understood that it was easier and it was disruptive when they did, the researchers did. They tried to teach to the machine how to learn. Not we say to the machine what we know, but we give the machine the capability to learn. And that happened the revolution, and happened the revolution of these days. Machine learning is the killer app. Next slide, please. So this is the focus topic, and this is the evidence-based policy making is the very stressing important concept. We will focus on this because as you know, you can study starting from the theory, fantastic, models, good. But when you start from the data, you follow a very specific approach, and this approach is opening a new kind of governance all over the world. And this approach is the evidence-based policymaking. We will stress on this new approach because we think that impact assessment can make a jump, very important, using artificial intelligence, but managing the risks we have on the table. Next slide. Just to say, 124 sections we will have in this global event. Thank you. Go ahead. Yeah, when they asked me to introduce artificial intelligence and machine learning for this specific event, I will have the honor to chair. I asked to ChatGPT to organize the conference, my interview. It's exactly what scientists, Charlotte, are doing with the group that is working on the principle of impact assessment, artificial intelligence applied to impact assessment. And I know that there are many people who have not a specific knowledge on artificial intelligence. So just to have an idea, artificial intelligence is a part of artificial intelligence is machine learning. A part of machine learning goes into the numerical machine learning, the classical machine learning, and the large language learning or models. These models are very famous now thanks to ChatGPT. To have an idea, I do not have to explain because it's on all over the newspapers in the world. I was in New York last week, and all the most important newspaper of the world was talking about 100 billions of evaluation of this company. In few months, this company reached this evaluation. We are not interested in the evaluations. We are interested in numbers. And when a number grow in this situation, assessors like us has to ask themselves to ourselves what's happening. And so that's the reason why large language modeling are really creating a revolution. And with machine learning, with numbers together, there can create very strong tools for our work. But we have to know these tools in order to be prepared and to prepare ourselves toward what will come. Because if our stakeholder will use this tool, well, we can't afford not to know this tool and not to focus our attention, our knowledge on this kind of new technology. So if just a few examples to close my first speech today, just using, next slide, please. If you ask to ChatGPT, sorry, this slide was to introduce exactly what I'm telling you, the 3 levels of artificial intelligence that bring us to ChatGPT in order to see where we are now are exactly the artificial intelligence every one of you probably knows, like Alexa, Siri, and it's very popular, is the first level. The first revolution was the second one, and now everyone is talking about the second part, the artificial general intelligence, which is focused exactly to solve a specific task and to learn, is exactly the machine learning approach we were introducing. But in front of us, there is now it's theoretical, but it's potential, because we will see very incredible things in next 24 months, is the artificial superintelligence, is when the artificial intelligence is more than us. But yes, I don't agree too much to this definition, because in a certain point, also a calculator is better than us in making calculations. So there is a lot of confusion about this topic, and I want you to invite in Bologna just to focus this argument, because the history is to be written now. And so if you open ChatGPT, for example, just to present you, next slide, please, you see that you can ask to chat how many tools are there similar to ChatGPT now, about 15, and ChatGPT gave us the whole list, for example. So if you're interested to focus on these tools, we have 15 potential tools that use exactly large language models. That it means not only numbers, the output is a product of communication, is a text, is an image, is a video. So you can imagine it's a revolution. The next slide, please. I asked it to chat because we will focus on this conference, and then Valentina will stress this about a health impact assessment. As you know, we consider one of the most important impact assessment topic, because it's about us. And so the reason, if you ask to these tools how to manage, for example, an environmental screening, for example, or a health risk assessment, you will find a very systematic approach. These models are able to learn from a big amount of documents, and IAIA documents too, to learn how to organize the work. So you can use them just to organize. I'm sure that every one of you has got more specific knowledge from machine, yes, but you can use a draft material generated by these models to improve your specific competence, your specific knowledge. And so the two things together can really create a revolution. If you take a look and you ask to ChatGPT to focus exactly what kind of database you want to use in South America about the health of people in the forest, it finds this kind of database. If you ask to another search engine, classical, it's very confusing, the results. That's a specific idea. You will have to learn the prompting, the art of making the right question. The right question produce a good answer. Mistakes. Our ChatGPT makes a lot of mistakes, and they write exactly. But our approach must be a scientific approach. We use the system, we analyze the performance, we criticize. We have to go inside this new challenge in order to understand the potential and the risk. Last slide, please. Last two slides. Just other three examples. If you, for example, I asked it, give me 3 short points to stress the importance of artificial intelligence for environmental and social impact assessment. And it finds it. And if you see the answer and you can try, it focuses exactly the right topic. So it's very useful also for people who does not anything about a specific topic. But when we use machine learning, we can use topic for a very high level of scientific approach. So how can we use artificial intelligence for stakeholder engagement? And it gives you view of this idea. And if you take a look to what he suggests, you will see it's very competent in this direction. In order to close and have an idea also of this potential of using this kind of tool in our work, and it's described, I ask it, in which impact assessment procedure to be used, and it follow exactly, it choose the best procedure where artificial intelligence can be improved. Oh, it's not the true, absolutely, but is a suggestion, is a tool, and we have to maintain this approach, maintain the human-centric approach to analyze in a very critical but attention to this technology, because it will impact every part of our work activity. Last slide, please. So at the end of the day, I asked it also a short story for artificial intelligence. We're interested just to make you see that artificial intelligence started in 19, and it knows, perfectly knows its history. So many years ago, as I told you. And at the end of my presentation, I asked him how to present to stakeholder in 10 minutes, 15 minutes, our proposal of IAIA 25. And you will find a perfect presentation, better than I did for you now. So my only aim today was to open your interest to come in Bologna and to have a big discussion together with the most relevant impact assessment community of scientists, institutions, practitioners, companies worldwide, which is IAIA. And so I kindly ask to Valentina to introduce what specific call to action we can have in this conference that will be the 1st of May in Bologna. Thank you, Valentina, for your help.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Giuseppe. Yeah, health will be a key topic during our conference in Bologna, and health impact assessment will be another key topic. As you may know, health impact assessment is a developing tool which is used at the international level, and it has very big differences in all the context in which it's used. For example, in Italy, we have a health impact assessment, which is very different from other experiences. For example, Wales or Scotland or Ireland. This is the reason why one of the sessions of the conference will concern just the comparative perspective on HIA. And in this session, you will have the opportunity to know also the implementation of health impact assessment with artificial intelligence. So it will be a great opportunity to know which which cases experts can bring to this conference. And there will be another specific session on the health consequences of the implementation of artificial intelligence. So also in this session, you will have the chance to know how artificial intelligence will impact the health of people and also will work within impact assessment. But the conference will be very innovative for another reason. There will be a pre-conference training session on IAIA and also on IAIA with the use of artificial intelligence. And we will have in this training very big experts from all over the world. And also, for example, we will have the perspective of World Health Organization. So it will be a very, very innovative training session which will give you the opportunity to learn health impact assessment and artificial intelligence. So it will be a great opportunity for you to know more about these topics if you don't know it, or to bring your expertise during our sessions and our training. So welcome to Bologna.
Thank you, Valentina. If there is some, Josh, if you want to coordinate some question from the people who are attending.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much, Giuseppe and Valentina, for that. So hopefully my screen is back up and running. People can see that. Just give me a nod if that's the case, Giuseppe.
Sorry, yep. Okay, perfect. Now I see you.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so yeah, please, if anyone's got any questions, obviously Giuseppe and Valentina kind of giving you some perspectives on the conference, also giving you some perspectives, obviously focused from Giuseppe on artificial intelligence and its role in impact assessment. So if you do have questions, please fire them through. Just a few questions to kind of get us started. You're both working hard, obviously, to make IAIA a great success. So I'd like to know, you know, kind of, I suppose, what your personal hopes are for the legacy it leaves on impact assessment. So I guess my question would be, what are your hopes in terms of the influence that next year's conference actually has in terms of impact assessment practice in Italy, across Europe, and even globally?
Oh, thank Josh. It's a very good question. We hope, really hope, that our community of scientists, IAIA, can really influence and be part of the change. This is our aim. There is the reason why IAIA decided to produce principles, because IAIA wants to stay exactly on the stage. They want to work directly, because these kind of tools are very important and very, you see, they have a lot of impacts. If your stakeholder, for example, you are a practitioner and you prepare an assessment, and the people who has to evaluate your work is using artificial intelligence, it's better you participated to the way we use this tool together in order to find the best way to, because or they're creating some. This is the strategy where IAIA want to influence at different decision levels, from the government to the global agency. World Bank is involved, and UNDP. All the institutions must participate. EIB have to participate in a unique working open table discussing the potential of these technologies and measuring. We are measuring, guys, measure the impact toward the years based on the data. After the principle, we have to see the principle, we have to publish the principle, and then we have to monitor what's really happening in the world in order to see if our principles are working or if you have to correct, to adapt to the situation. This is the idea, my personal idea of influence of this conference and the role, fundamental role of impact IAIA in this on this table.
Thank you. And Valentina, your hopes for the conference?
I hope that this innovative approach of IAIA will come to Italy and involve also Italian practitioners in a dialogue with international practitioners. This is a very important way to understand and develop impact assessment. So all the community should be unite in this development, and I think that this conference will be a unique opportunity to do so.
Thank you, thank you. We're getting some questions in now, but one that came up was kind of over the last year, a number of members have kind of come together, as you mentioned, Giuseppe, to draft some IAIA, some International Association for Impact Assessment, kind of draft principles on artificial intelligence in impact assessments. And there was a discussion session over in Dublin at this year's conference about those. I guess what was from both of you, I don't know if you're aware of those, but from both of you, you know, what is your take on both the need for some principles for the impact assessment community and any views on kind of how we move forward in finalising those? Because there was obviously, I think, quite some contention, should we say, around some of those draft ones from quite impact assessment kind of traditional impact assessment perspective. Valentino, any thoughts first?
Yeah, I think that principles could be a useful tool, also to, in a certain way, to guide the authorities also in the implementation of these techniques, and it should be useful also that national authorities will implement own guidelines on these on the application of artificial intelligence in health impact assessment, but not only at impact assessment, in impact assessment in general. We're working with Giuseppe, with the IAIA, with the Italian authorities to do so. So it's a pleasure that IAIA could bring its expertise also in this for this tool.
Mm-hmm. And Giuseppe, next steps and the principles.
Yeah. I think IAIA is doing very well in this direction. I think because it's so impacting new technology, it's so difficult for us now to predict what really will happen in the use of artificial intelligence that we have to be very honest with ourselves. It's like a weapon. It's something very dangerous, you know, but can also be very useful. So when a technology is so impacting that can have this double phase, principles are fundamental to sign the point, the ethical point of starting. And also machine learning, to make very practical, is fantastic. If you fix a point B from a point A and you ask to a machine which is the best pathway to go there, oh, the machine wins. The machine is better than us. But the problem is that the man has to decide where to put the B point. And this approach comes only from a very ethical and principle-based approach. So I'm very happy and honored that with Valentina, with you, with IAIA, we will present in Italy these principles worldwide.
Thank you very much, Giuseppe. Someone's asked about potentially seeing a bit more detail of the chat GPT generated examples. I believe we can't really bring them back up on the screen easily and keep the discussion going. But if you look in the handout section on the slide out menu of the GoToWebinar section, there is a PDF of presentation and a PDF of slides. I believe one of those will have that detail if people want to look at that, because they're saying it might be useful to help them generate questions. However, we have had plenty of questions in. So I guess maybe if I jump to you, Valentina, first, because I think some people were wanting to, or hoping to hear perhaps a little bit more about your PhD thesis you're doing around health and environment at the University of Turin. And alongside that, also asking questions of, are you aware of examples of artificial intelligence being used in health impact assessment? So maybe you could kind of respond to those two areas.
Yeah, my PhD project is has a legal perspective, which is a bit innovative in this field. I'm not an epidemiologist or a toxicologist. I'm a lawyer, and so I wanted to study, to investigate health impact assessment from a legal perspective, and study how it's implemented in Italy and how it's implemented abroad. And I found that there are very big differences, as anticipated. For example, in Italy, we have a more quantitative health impact assessment. Whilst, for example, in Wales or Ireland, you have a more qualitative HIA. In which sense, in Italy, we have a very strong epidemiology and toxicology standpoint in this HIA. And this is important in this conversation, because we have many uses of artificial intelligence in epidemiology and toxicology. So artificial intelligence could bring new opportunities to health impact assessment in Italy, but also abroad. So my investigation is interesting in order to understand how health impact assessment could adapt to different contexts and to different projects or programs or policies, and so and this is the reason why there will be a dedicated session during the conference, just to have the standpoint of experts from all over the world to discuss these differences, also with in the implementation of artificial intelligence.
Thank you for that. I suppose just before we jump in, well, no, let's jump into some of the more impact assessment questions, and we can come back to perhaps some of the more kind of assistive ones a little bit later. So a kind of little sequence of questions now coming from different people, but I think I feel quite usefully linked together. So I'll start with the first one, which is from the co-chair of IAIA's Governance and Implementation Systems section, and indicating that there's a lot of reform agenda around the world around impact assessment and decision-making systems, looking for efficiency and effectiveness. I think the word streamlining was used a lot of times over at the Dublin conference. And they were asking, how might artificial intelligence, information management, decision systems, how might these be used to reform impact assessments? What are your thoughts on that? Giuseppe, if we go to you first.
Thank you, Josh. I think we have a unique opportunity we have ever had. As you have seen also in the application of the World Bank, great work they did in this direction, we have the opportunity to create a new baseline impact reference worldwide, creating a system by which, thanks to artificial intelligence, which other isn't then maintain the memory, learning from what happened before. That's the maximum you can have in impact assessment, because if you put into a digital system, a system that maintains the memory of what just happened in the past, you can use that experience to manage your future. That's one of the most important application of artificial intelligence, especially when you do not have all the current, all the data covered, because many of the governments, I have a lot of speech about this, we do not have the data about what. Yes, but if you use a statistical approach, you can really, with machine learning, mitigate the uncertainty. It is incredible. This big amount of data can help you also where you do not have the data. It's not a miracle, it's a statistics. So when you have to take a decision, at a certain point, you have to take the decision. So it's better to take the decision with less uncertainty. This is the disruptive approach of the new governance, data-driven, as many practitioners define it. So I think very important your question, because I think that permitting system, financial sector, are the starting point by which we have the impact on the health, on the environment, and on the ecosystems, on climate change, as you know. So we have to define a global framework of application of artificial intelligence using the disruptive knowledge of members, for example, in order to drive altogether the best methodology that governments can implement and testing. And my personal dream is to have in this conference the day one of a new phase. We would like to develop a strong and structured discussion that can also use many tools in a very agnostic approach, and building together the best navigator for our future.
Thank you very much, Giuseppe. Anything to add, Valentina, before we move on to some of the other questions around AI's role in reform of impact assessment to make it more efficient and effective for decision making? Sorry, I've got my screen half covered by the questions. Right, okay, well, we'll move on. Is Valentina back? Oh, there, yes. Apologies. Oh, we can't hear you at the moment. Oh, I can't. It might just be me. No.
Do you hear me?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I couldn't unmute my phone. Yeah. I think that this conference will be a very, very important conference, and yeah, you're all welcome in Bologna, and let's share your experience about impact assessment, and so thank you, everybody.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so if we're going to be making changes, we're going to be trusting AI more, or even if we're not necessarily trusting of AI, as you say, Giuseppe, it's here and it's happening, so we've got to get on board with it. I suppose the first question or series of questions that are coming in from people are around how do we make sure, and how do AIs get validated to make sure their results are accurate, and also questions coming in saying how do we prevent artificial intelligence from propagating errors that already exist in impact assessment. So if they're learning from the existing impact assessment, and maybe it's not been as good on social as it has on environment in the past, or in certain countries it's been worse in some topics than others, how do we stop it just simply propagating misinformation back to us?
Good question too. We know the best thing to evaluate the quality of an output probably is to analyzing which is the input. So someone say garbage out, garbage in. No? So I think that one of the most important and key factor is to exactly know when you use a learning machine. I define in a very simple way. You take a lot of data. You have a database. you take a part of this database to make training. You teach. The machine starting to teach. So it's very important that it's public, the database by which this system has learned. If we create a system like that, everyone in the world, every open situation can check the quality. And if we publish these kind of data, we can not warranty, but we go in a very good direction of transparency, because the best way to avoid mistakes is exactly to share the data on which the system has been trained. And so if we use good materials like IAIA materials, for example, materials coming from the scientists, because it's not the same. You read, I don't know, some notes on Facebook, nothing against Facebook, but anyway, if you take a text coming from IAPA, probably talking about impact assessment, the second one is a bit better, you know. So this is the idea. So it's very important the way we set up these systems. And I think IAIA is exactly the global community that might be a very important role in this direction, like an observer, which is exactly what IAIA do at its best way. So this is my personal opinion. So, but I'm very open to hear everyone, and it will be very nice and fantastic having thousands of discussions before, during, and after this very, very important event. I completely agree with Valentina. I want to stress last concept. I repeat, IAIA 25 is a particular conference because we have the most impacting technology of ever, probably. And there is the global community with governments, with scientists. We can, on the table, analyze this new technology. So we have a great opportunity. And I strongly invite everyone to participate directly in Bologna, also for enjoying Italy, our food, our weather, and our good places, we hope. And we are organizing also fantastic technical visits. So we really hope to have a lot of people coming from all the parts of the world.
Fantastic. And yeah, I guess it's worth mentioning. I believe the opportunity to submit papers to those, was it 124, 164, however many, the many sessions that have been out there. So for those who haven't been to an IAIA conference, there are lots of concurrent sessions. So there could be 12 different rooms with different discussions going on at once, and many of the delegates are presenters as well. And you have the opportunity through the IAIA's website or the subsite for the conference to look across those sessions and consider submitting a paper if you want to come along to continue this debate, which obviously there's only a few of us in, but there will be hundreds, if not well over 1,000 in Bologna next year. Maybe just to draw things to a close with a couple of more hopefully focused questions, but we'll see what the answers come back on. Maybe this one first to Valentina, and then Giuseppe, if you'd be happy to give your opinion. So if artificial intelligence is used in an impact assessment process, does it have to be disclosed under the law? And then I guess aside the law, is there a moral imperative to disclose that you've used it? So hence why I've asked it to you, Valentina, first from the legal perspective, but then also maybe Giuseppe more from the practitioner perspective.
Yeah, it's a very good question. And yeah, I think that the methods used for an impact assessment should be disclosed. Also, if you don't use artificial intelligence, or if you use artificial intelligence, you should disclose the methodologies used in order to so if you are a developer, or if you are an authority, you should be transparent on the methods used during your assessment. So and this is why I said that it will be useful to have guidelines from authorities, from national authorities, for example, because it's important that everyone knows how an impact assessment is going on. It's important for a developer, so for a company, for example, which wants to develop a project, but also it's important for an authority which have to assess a project and judge this project. So and also it's important for the public, because we should stress the fact that impact assessments have a great participation moment. So also the public should know which methods are used in order to, for example, make observations and comments, and also to reduce risks of litigation and of conflicts, for example, local conflicts. So I think that transparency is the key of this impact assessment.
Thank you very much, Valentina. Giuseppe, quite a comprehensive answer from Valentino anyway, so, but anything to add?
Very shortly, no, I completely agree with Valentina. You give what you receive. So you give trust to participation. You give trust, it means you give transparency, you receive trust, you receive transparency. In a world like this, after 10 years of social, of everything, it's better to be completely transparent. This is our approach, and that's the reason why artificial intelligence has not to be a black box. It's more than 10 years. We are working with government and with Italian government too, to make an example. And our technical documents put inside a specific laws, specific regulation, are algorithms, but are completely explained. So, and we have solved the claims and the problems we had with many situations in Italy, especially on particular very impacting facilities like waste treatment and so on. And we touch the word directly that give trust and you receive trust.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much for that. So there's been a little bit, I guess this might well be something, if Hak-Ju Song had been here, we would have had the example of kind of applications from the World Bank, and he certainly would have provided, or certainly his presentation he gave in Dublin back in April and May, highlighted some of the prompts to use within a chat GPT type system. But I guess someone was asking, is there any kind of advice on making effective prompts, or can you even ask chat GPT what makes effective prompts so that it can teach you? Giuseppe.
It's a bit complex question, not complex to answer now, but it's great to solve these kind of items exactly during the conference. I appreciated a lot the tool of World Bank. We have analyzed it in more than one session, and great news for developers. So I'm very happy for him and too. And I think we will have exactly to test which is the best way to. One, when I mentioned before, a specific evidence-based decisions. Evidence-based, it means you have to accept to make mistakes in the first time. Make mistakes in a very restricted area and then learn from the answer. This is the paradigmatic approach of machine learning, and its disruptiveness comes exactly from this approach. So I invite everyone to test the system, to be very critical, and to test in different ways the machine, and consider, just to open an argument that will be, I'm sure, on the table on May. We have never told anything about this today, but it will be, Josh, the agents. These programs works also when you sleep. That's the and they continue to find a way to until they find the way to. So we will have to regulate this huge amount of software that if there are no regulations, you can imagine what can happen if 8 billion people has got its own agent running in the world. So we are in front of a revolution. I think, and I make again my invitation. IAIA 25 is the day one of this global speech, and IAIA has to influence the decision makers because they have exactly to understand the effective impact of this technology, and for one time to try to make the impact assessment before the disasters, because we are great as humans to understand what happened and why it happened, but never to make this assessment before. And our responsibility as community of assessors is exactly this, to inform exactly the decision makers, to use this tool, but with the scientific community together. As you know, artificial intelligence works if you have mathematical, IT, and specific knowledge of the domain. The specific knowledge is IAIA. So I believe that we have a very important role and function in next years at a very governance level in order to interact with people who decide how to move, how to regulate. European Union has just done a specific directive, is a regulation directive that try to manage this new technology. Good direction, but scientists must be on board. Practitioners, governments have to collaborate in this direction. It's not just words, it's very important to do, or we will have problems.
Absolutely. I think I'm going to draw it to a close there. So thank you very much, Giuseppe and Valentina. There's some questions about IAIA. Is it just environment focused or is it broader? IAIA definitely covers more than just environment. You'll have heard Valentina talk about the health sides of impact assessment. There's social impact assessment, which we haven't placed a great deal of focus on today, but there will certainly be many, many sessions and discussions at the conference, and there's a lot of active members within IAIA looking at social impacts. It's less so, I suppose, on economic impact assessment or those type of areas, but certainly go to the website to learn more about that. So thank you very much, Giuseppe and Valentina, for that. I'm now going to hand back to Keisha to just close us out for the end of today.
Yes, thank you. All right, so thank you to Josh, Giuseppe, and Valentina for the great presentation and discussion. As Josh mentioned, there are a variety of kind of sections or sectors within IAIA, but if you do have any questions on membership within IAIA or more, if you want to hear more about what we do, there will be a closing survey that you will take just in a few moments after this webinar ends. And if you could please just fill out that survey and give us some feedback on how the webinar went today, that would be great. But that would also be an opportunity for you to answer or to ask any questions on AI or IAIA and what we do, and if it would be a good fit for you. So if you have any questions, you can put them in there. But as well, if you are an IAIA member, feel free to share anything from today's webinar into the hub. It would be a great place to put anything that you might want to talk about more. You know, I know there were a lot of questions that we didn't necessarily have time to answer, and so if you have any questions that you'd like to discuss more, feel free to put it in the hub. And I also was I was told too during the webinar that there was a question about the AI principles that came out of Dublin, and it sounds like the timeline, the goal is to have those published in Bologna and roll those out kind of after that point. And so we should have those principles for using AI in IA ready for you in just a few months. But other than that, like I said, please fill out that survey. One question that's going to ask you is about future topics you'd like to hear more on. So if you'd like to request any certain topics for a future webinar, that would be great. Then I will work on finding experts that can deliver that information to you and give a webinar. So a final thanks to all the participants who joined us live today. There was a few hundred of you on here live. I know many of you will be watching on demand at a later point too, so thank you for joining from wherever you're watching from. We know your time is valuable, and we hope that you found it a valuable use of your time to spend it with us today. So thank you, and until next time, have a great day.